Hey guys, today we're going to review analyzing characters. It's a skill that you're going to be practicing when you get on Raz Kids this week. It is also a skill that both Miss Blanco and myself are going to review with you guys during our read alouds this week of the books that we're reading. So, with analyzing characters, first you just have to remember that authors create different types of characters in fiction stories all of the time. Characters are what drive the story forward. We care about them, what happens to them, usually creates suspense, and we usually learn a lesson by the end of the story through the character. So I want you to imagine this scenario. I'm going to read it to you. Mimi heard a gentle meowing near the giant oak tree. Her cat, Chester, was on one of the high branches. He sounded scared. Mimi yelled for help as she ran to the tree. "It's okay, Chester. We'll get you down," she called. Now, my first question for you is pretty easy. Who are the characters? I'll go back to the passage while you check. If you're thinking that there are two characters in this scenario, you're right. We have Mimi, who seems to be the main character. We also have a minor character, her cat Chester. So the harder kind of question then is, what type of person is Mimi? Now, that is a character trait question. That's asking you to analyze the character. What type of person is Mimi? So we do have some common character traits. There are literally hundreds. These are just a few. Words like brave, caring, shy, clever, timid, which also means shy, nervous, sneaky. Those are all examples of character traits. So thinking, what type of person is Mimi? When I'm thinking about that, I want to pay attention to what Mimi, the character, does, what she says out loud. We call that dialogue, and even what she thinks. Those types of clues are going to help me discover character traits that Mimi shows. So, what I have found is, I think, a couple of traits that really work for Mimi. One thing I was thinking is that she is a caring person. And my clues are, she yelled for help. You would only do that if you actually cared about the person or other character. And she also told Chester that it would be okay. She comforted him at the end. Those are both kind of action clues, right? We have actions and words to back up the character trait caring. Another trait that I found that I think you might agree with me about is the character trait brave, right? And I was really looking at that action that she did. She ran towards the tree without thinking, she just did it. That is something that a brave person would do. So, just a reminder is, when we are thinking about analyzing characters and we're asked a question like, what type of person is so and so, they're asking you about a character trait. And the main thing you want to do is be able to defend your ideas with evidence from the text, what the character did, what the character said, and what the character was thinking. So, I have a question for a story we're going to read together in just a moment. The story features a character named Emily, and my big question for you is, what type of person is Emily? So I'm going to go ahead and show you that passage it's from Raz Kids. So this passage is called Sailing Towards America. And like I said, our main character is Emily, and we want to discover what kind of person is Emily. What are one or two character traits that she shows? So this says, Emily looked back at her homeland as the ship drifted out of the harbor. She wiped away her tears. Will I ever see the green hills of Ireland again? She wondered. She turned and buried her face into her mother's scratchy woolen coat and sobbed. Darlin', her father said, patting her arm, don't worry. I hear the streets in America are paved with gold. He gave her a wink and kissed her on the forehead. Emily's mother looked straight ahead. Remember, you'll be living with Bryony and Bristy. You and your cousins can meet your troubles together, she said firmly. Emily felt a little better when she thought of her Uncle Emerald's family. Living with them would make the move easier. It would be like the old days when they all lived in Ireland, but now they would have enough food. Emily and her twin cousins were 10 years old, so they would be in the same grade at school. That could be fun. So, how many days until we get to New York? Emily asked with a smile. Now, I don't know if you're noticing, same thing I did, is Emily kind of starts out at the beginning of the story showing one character trait, and by the end, she does change and she shows a completely different character trait. So when you're asked a question like, what type of person is Emily? There really isn't a wrong answer. You can look at the beginning of the text and say a character trait for how she was at the beginning and back that up with evidence. Or you could focus at the end of the text. You know, what type of person was she showing herself to be by the end of the story? What does she do, say, or think to prove that? For me, I looked at the beginning of the text because there just seemed to be a lot more text evidence that I could use. And a couple of actions and words that really caught my eye. I'm not sure about you, but at the beginning, I have this girl wiping away her tears. Nice action for you there. I do have some words that she said out loud. Remember, we said we could focus on what the character said. So, will I ever see the green hills of Ireland again? She kind of said that in her mind, actually, so that could count as a thought. We also have another action. She turned and buried her face into her mom's scratchy coat and sobbed. If you're not sure what sobbed means, well, I could use the context clues from earlier in the story. What was she doing just a couple of sentences ago? She was wiping away her tears. Sobbing is just a synonym for crying. So, when I'm looking at those actions, thoughts, and words, that kind of helps me realize at the beginning of this story, I think that Emily is really homesick. She misses her home, she misses Ireland. I also think she's very, very sad. So I'm going to show you a chart that I created here. All right, so what I did was I had a chart, and you'll see a chart, at least for my class, similar to this later in the week on Wednesday and Friday for our read alouds. I do have a couple of traits that I tracked for Emily here to answer that question. What type of person is Emily? I have the trait sad, and I backed it up with an action. She wiped away her tears. I could have also added that she was sobbing. I also have the character trait homesick, and I have she looked back at Ireland, and she'd asked if they would she would ever see it again. And so that thought and that action, I feel like really backed up that second character trait I thought about. So, what I wanted to remind you of is today and every day, when you are analyzing characters for the fiction stories that you're reading, definitely pay attention to what did the character do, what did the character say, and what did the character think to help you land on a character trait word that fits that character perfectly for that part of the book. Before I leave you, I'm going to show you the ending of that story about Emily. And after we reread this ending, I want you to think to yourself, if you could pick a character trait for Emily for the end of the book, what would you choose for her? And can you say out loud one piece of evidence from the text to back that up? So here's the end of our story. Emily felt a little better when she thought of her Uncle Emerald's family. Living with them would make the move easier. It would be like the old days when they all lived in Ireland, but now they would have enough food. Emily and her twin cousins were 10 years old, so they would be in the same grade at school. That could be fun. So, how many days until we get to New York? Emily asked with a smile. So I'm going to circle that last part there, and I want you just to think to yourself before you move on with your work today and tackle some RAS Kids assignments or other homework assignments on Google Classroom. What is a character trait that you would pick for the end of the story for Emily? Emily is a blank person. And what is at least one piece of evidence why? I feel that she is a blank person because, and plug in that answer with something she did, said, or thought. Until next week, stay safe and have a great day.